All right, so let's start with the big story that we are tracking on WION at this hour, where the first ever Quad Leaders Summit has concluded. In the face of growing economic competition from China, US President Joe Biden's administration is putting in greater emphasis on the Indo-Pacific region. Now, Joe Biden has been stressing on the need for cooperation in China since he joined office. At a post-meet briefing, the National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan said that the virtual meeting has been described as pretty historic by the leaders. Ms. Sullivan also said that while China was not a primary focus of the meeting, the Quad nations had strained relationships with Beijing, and that was an issue that did come up.
Four leaders did discuss the challenge posed by China, and they made clear that none of them have any illusions about China. But today was not fundamentally about China. Much of the focus was on pressing global crises, including the climate crisis and COVID-19. And with respect to COVID-19, these four leaders made a massive joint commitment today. With Indian manufacturing, US technology, Japanese and American financing, and Australian logistics capability, the Quad committed to delivering up to 1 billion doses to ASEAN, the Indo-Pacific, and beyond by the end of 2022.
Now, the Quad has announced plans to expand on the coronavirus vaccine manufacturing capacity in India in an effort to expand production and also to promote access to the vaccines in the Indo-Pacific region. India will now manufacture at least about 1 billion more COVID-19 vaccine doses by the end of next year. And the manufacturing, interestingly, will also be backed financially by Japan and also the United States International Development Finance Corporation, which provides for funding for projects in developing nations. Now, Australia will also be contributing nearly $77 million to ensure that vaccines are not only delivered, but also administered in Southeast Asia as well. Now, this will be in addition to an earlier commitment of about $407 million. Japan, in turn, will also be providing about $41 million for the distribution of vaccines, which requires careful climate control.
And with respect to COVID-19, these four leaders made a massive joint commitment today. With Indian manufacturing, US technology, Japanese and American financing, and Australian logistics capability, the Quad committed to delivering up to 1 billion doses to ASEAN, the Indo-Pacific, and beyond by the end of 2022.
Now, according to the joint statement that was released by the White House after the virtual summit, an in-person meeting has also been decided to be held between the four nations, and this is expected to be held sometime by the end of 2021. The countries have also pledged to work to ensure a free and open Indo-Pacific region. Meanwhile, during the summit of the four nations covered many major contemporary challenges such as vaccine diplomacy, climate change and emerging technology. The four nations have also agreed to build upon peace and stability and well-being in the Indo-Pacific region. Now, listening to Indian Foreign Secretary Harshvardhan Shringla's briefing the media after the virtual meeting.
Today's summit saw the Quad leaders adopt a positive agenda and vision, focusing on contemporary issues such as vaccines, climate change and emerging technologies. Prime Minister said at the summit today that he saw this positive vision as an extension of our ancient philosophy of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, which, as you know, regards the world as one family. At the summit, the leaders sought to strengthen the moorings for peace, stability and well-being among the people of the Indo-Pacific and in the global community. Their discussions also extended to post-pandemic recovery, resilient supply chains and maritime security.
Now, the summit leaders have also applauded India's vaccine diplomacy with its allies.
The four countries have agreed to a plan to pool their financial resources, manufacturing capabilities and capacities, and logistical strengths so as to ramp up the manufacture and distribution of the COVID-19 vaccines in the Indo-Pacific region. We believe this will speed up the process of post-pandemic recovery and enable families and businesses to put the COVID-19 crisis behind them and move towards normalization.
Now, what is interesting is that the 4 countries have also decided to form 3 working groups, namely Vaccine Expert Working Group for Safe Vaccine Distribution, the Climate Change Working Group to finance action against climate change, and lastly, Technology Working Group to cooperate with international standards and also to discuss innovative technology for the future.
At the meeting, the leaders agreed to the creation of 3 working groups, and these are a Vaccine Expert Working Group to implement our path-breaking commitment to safe and effective vaccine distribution, a Critical and Emerging Technology Working Group to facilitate cooperation on international standards and innovative technologies of the future, and a Climate Working Group to strengthen climate actions globally on mitigation, adaptation, resilience, technology, capacity building, and climate finance.
Now, according to the Foreign Secretary, this meeting has set a kind of a benchmark for what effectively will be the future efforts of the Quad. Now, the Quad members are all set to meet again sometime later towards the end of this year. And we also earlier spoke with our correspondent Susan Tehrani, who joined us live from New York, and this is what she had to say about this important and historic Quad meeting.
Just a few days ago, if you recall, there was the U.S. Admiral who was testifying on Capitol Hill, Top Admiral Davidson, and he really came out and said in order to have a free and open Indo-Pacific region, you really have these diamond democracies working together, and one of those aspects of having this free and open Indo-Pacific region is not only economically and strategically, but is also really pushing the notion of democracy forward, considering the fact that these countries really do want to counter what Xi Jinping has said, the China dream, and not so subtle nod to the American dream, but sort of combating the not only the Western liberal style of living here in the United States, but the pushback on democracies in the region as well. So that was interesting, yes.
WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.